Psychonauts is the sort of game you've probably only heard of if you frequently venture into online gaming communities. Originally coming out in 2005, it's what a lot of people have called a hidden gem, as it received very high praise from fans and critics alike, but sold quite poorly at launch. However, once the developers, Double Fine Productions, acquired publishing rights and started to put it on digital platforms years later, it quickly sold very well. The game itself is about Rasputin Aquato, a 10-year-old psychic who ran away from his family to train his psychic abilities with a group of international psychic spies that use their powers to keep the world safe. The game's main levels, so to speak, consist of Raz going into the minds of other characters he meets in order to learn new abilities and information, as well as to help them fight their inner demons. So, fast forward 10 years, and in late 2015, Double Fine announced that they would be launching a fundraising campaign in order to fund a sequel. And though the goal was an astounding $3.3 million, the fans pulled through. Fast forward again until August 25th, 2021, and despite a lot of difficulty in development in which the project is saved, believe it or not, by Microsoft of all things, the game is finally finished and released to the world, a whole 16 years after the release of the original game. So there's your history lesson, folks. And yes, there will be a test on this. Even though this is a review of the second game, I will also be talking about the original quite a bit as well for a point of comparison. But I'll try to spoil as little as possible in both cases. Psychonauts 2 is honestly just more of the first game, and that is an incredibly good thing. Everything about this game has the same style as the original, but has evolved with how gaming has progressed over the years. And that's honestly a great thesis for my thoughts on this game. A lot of the exploration of the different people's minds is not only for progression, but also extra collectibles. The sequel makes some changes, which boil down to removing the boring stuff and adding more of what we love. They've added new kinds of collectibles, including nuggets of wisdom, half-a-minds, and supply chests that offer unique rewards. All powers now have use in fights as well as puzzle solving, and you can equip up to 3 special pins in order to augment your powers. The default melee combo is also smoother and more satisfying, less rigid, more flowy. That's not a real word. Flowy's not a real word. We're gonna stick with flowy. These are just a few of the things that shows that Double Fine has taken the criticisms of the original to heart. Let's cover a few miscellaneous things about the game other than gameplay. The music has a very similar style, but is noticeably different, as using different types of sounds and instruments is a lot easier today than it was 16 years ago. The writing is still as hilarious as ever. There are many entertaining characters with distinct personalities, and Raz's little quips are still proof that he is trying a bit too hard to be cool, and I love every moment of it.
Good thing we're near a hospital, so, your ghosts don't have to walk oh, never mind.
Remember to act casual!
I am acting casual.
What's that?
I said, I love Casual Friday. Am I right? What? I'm an intern. Agent Forsyth gave me this.
The voice performances are also stellar. I can confidently say that every actor fit their character near perfectly. I will also say that there's a character voiced by Jack Black, and he gets a full 3-minute song. If nothing else has gotten your interest so far, hopefully that did. Despite all that, the main attraction of Psychonauts is the level design of the various minds you visit. All of them are unique and interpret each character's unique issues differently. Confidence problems, sensory overload, loneliness. These are the problems that the Psychonauts series allows you to delve into in a format that is not only digestible, but also actively enjoyable, by keeping the metaphor hand in hand with the absurdity and hilarity of the situations that Raz finds himself in. Every single level hooks you with the narrative, audio, and visual design just as much as it does with the gameplay. It is important to note that this series does contain metaphors and depictions of mental issues that, while they are often depicted in a lighthearted way as a part of the comedy, may be distressing to some people. And the second game also has some dental imagery in the first level that may make players uncomfortable. Luckily, the moments of seriousness are never too terribly far away from a moment of comedy. Raz learns early on that it isn't enough to just, quote, fix people and make their problems go away by messing with their head. It's important instead to help them fight their inner demons on their own, so then when his work is done, they won't need him anymore. This was a problem with the narrative path that the first game took, with some depictions of insane asylum patients that are problematic by today's standards, and I'm very glad they approached the sequel from a different angle. Overall, I would give Psychonauts 2 a score of 9.5 out of 10. I have a few small gripes that keep it from getting a perfect score, some of which I didn't say here because of limited time, but it is truly an incredible experience. It is one of the few games that I finished and then immediately wanted to play through a second time. You don't have to play the first game in order to enjoy the second, but I would recommend playing it if you have the patience. If you're looking for a fun, comedic, and enthralling psychic adventure, Psychonauts 2 might be the game for you. Devil May Cry is a series of hack-and-slash action games where you slay wave after wave of demons. I quickly fell in love with the series, and I played through all 6 of the main games over the course of last spring. And yes, I was very disappointed when Dante turned out to be a Mikazu. So I decided to give a rapid-fire rundown of all 6 games. We only have so much time for this, so let's just jump in. Let's rock. The original Devil May Cry set the building blocks for the rest of the series, with quick melee combos, simple gunplay, and the iconic style point system. The static camera isn't super good for action gameplay, but it helps to build the gothic atmosphere they're going for. The plot is alright, but basic, and Dante has a lot more serious moments in this one than in the other games. This is the only one in the series to be directed by Hideki Kamiya, director of Wonderful 101 and Bayonetta, who, fun fact, once retweeted something I said on Twitter, an alright but aged action game. 7 out of 10.
Time to go to work.
What's next? Oh, 2? We don't have to talk about 2, right? We don't. Alright, fine, we'll talk about 2. DMC 2 is widely agreed to be the worst in the series. Melee combos don't feel precise, and rapid firing the handguns will win most fights for you. Dante is boring and brooding now, and the new protagonist Lucia just doesn't make up for that. You'll enjoy making fun of it for an hour, and then never playing it again. 2 out of 10.
Looks like it's your lucky day.
DMC 3 managed to build on the first game and learn from the second. All the weapons are unique, and you can now play in new ways by equipping different styles. The plot is a lot more interesting this time around, and Dante becomes a much more fleshed out character, as well as being the cocky jokester we know and love. We also properly get to meet Virgil, who is such an edgelord, and I love him. 9 out of 10.
Looks like this is gonna be one hell of a party.
DMC 4's new protagonist, Nero, may take some getting used to, but he offers some new abilities for a unique playstyle. Dante still returns, and now being able to change between the different styles in the heat of combat means that all of them are useful now. However, there are a number of frustrating enemies, and most bosses must be fought as many as 3 times. Still, mostly good game. 8 out of 10.
What the hell is this?
Oh boy, here's a landmine. DMC Devil May Cry, the 2013 reboot, was and still is very divisive, mainly because of the new depiction of Dante, the completely new reset timeline, and frankly bad dialogue writing. However, it tried a lot of cool things in my opinion. Combat's a little bit faster, weapon switching works in a cool new way, and some enjoyable platforming challenges were added. All major changes that I honestly prefer from the original game. This new Dante's character was somewhat annoying and didn't really come to fruition until the ending, but I do like it as a whole and the message they were trying to go for. Not without flaws, but has its merits and might even be my favorite. 9 out of 10.
Not in a million years.
Finally, DMC 5, going back to the original timeline. Dante and Nero's combos don't feel quite as natural to me as they did in 3 and 4, but they are mostly the same with some new stuff, along with a new character, V, who is a brand new playstyle. He wasn't very popular, but was my personal favorite. My biggest gripe though is that the female characters are pushed to the side, becoming glorified cheerleaders and damsels in distress. Like, They're badasses. Let them be badasses. Also, for most of the game, Nero is kind of a whiny little piss baby. Despite that though, it's visually great, the story told across 5 games comes to a beautiful conclusion, and even in a series with amazing music, the soundtrack here is by far the best. 9 out of 10 as well.
So it is written.
And time. Now you know about the whole DMC series. Wow, must be a new record. No, we're not talking about the anime.
Now I'm a little motivated. Blast!
Hey, do you like money?
I mean, of course.
Then what if instead of selling our game once, we make players constantly pay for content while diminishing the quality of the product at the same time?
But only we benefit from that. Literally everyone else will hate us.
Yeah, but we get rich.
Where do I sign? By most accounts, the first recorded instance of microtransactions in video games actually goes back to an arcade game, Double Dragon 3: The Rosetta Stone in 1990, which not only makes you put coins into the machine to play it like normal, but also makes you put more coins in if you want to purchase in-game items. As you can imagine, people didn't like that a whole lot in North America and Europe, and it got cut from the later Japanese release. Then later came the free-to-play model, where the game is free, except it isn't, because microtransactions. A company called the Nexon Group, which sounds super evil, by the way, did a lot of stuff with this format, including an MMO quiz game just called Quiz. What? Why is this a thing that exists? And it was released in 1999? That explains why all we can find are low-quality screenshots. This format started to truly kick off in the early 2000s with games like MapleStory and Adventure Quest, but it only became mainstream in the late 2000s, early 2010s, with stuff like Farmville, Game of War, Candy Crush Saga, and Clash of Clans, all of which are things that you've probably heard of, and I try to forget about. That's when the problem got kicked up to another degree. It's one thing to have a choice between paying for an item and doing an in-game quest or mission for it, but it's another thing to just make people wait for stuff to happen on a timer, and unless you want to wait hours or even days to really do anything in the game, you better cough up some dough. Pretty much all popular mobile games at the time and still today use the freemium format. A study found that out of all the revenue that Android and iOS made in 2013 specifically, the peak of this phenomenon, 92% of it came from games like this. It's also no secret that the vast majority of this money comes from an incredibly small amount of people who spend truly absurd amounts of money on microtransactions, who are referred to as whales. There's a whole discussion on the psychology and ethics, or lack thereof, that come with this format, but we're just the nerds, so we're not going to focus on the important parts of the world around us. Now we get to a bit of a crossroads, a real Shibuya crossing, if I do say so myself. On the one hand, microtransactions were somewhat popularized by Valve's Team Fortress 2, because not only was the game made free, but paying money doesn't actually make you more effective at the game. It's mostly for cosmetics, and all the weapons can be obtained quite easily without paying, and all have upsides and downsides. Of course now, TF2 is kind of dead in the water, but it had a pretty good run. However, this is when microtransactions started making their way into full $60 releases. Grand Theft Auto 5, Middle-earth Shadow of War, even my beloved Devil May Cry 5 also falls victim to this dreaded phenomenon. Not only that, but games started to do the TF2 thing, but started to do it worse, because now you can get the dreaded loot boxes, where you get completely random cosmetics. You can't choose to just pay money for the item you want. You pay money for the loot box in order to get a chance to get the item you want. Overwatch is an infamous example, but a lot of these games are still completely playable without needing to pay money.
Okay, fine. We'll talk about Battlefront 2. No, not that one. The 2017 one. Okay, why did EA call the new games Battlefront when their gameplay was completely different from the originals? And I know a lot of people, anybody with an internet connection during the fall of 2017 knew about EA's controversial progression system for Battlefront 2. So credits were the in-game currency you'd accumulate over time from playing the game or doing challenges. So you could spend them on abilities to upgrade the various soldier classes, unlock new heroes, or you could just drop $20 and unlock them all instantly. This is called pay to win, folks. Players estimated it would take roughly 40 hours of gameplay to accumulate enough credits to just unlock Darth Vader. This was obviously such a ridiculous amount of time, so it would force players to just pay up. So yeah, one most downvoted comment in Reddit history later, and EA EA revamped the entire progression system, and pretty quickly too. The game wasn't pay to win anymore, there were microtransactions, but they only went to cosmetics now. But even though the game is fantastic today, I can only imagine how much bigger the fanbase could be if it didn't have such a disastrous launch.
Others have been known to go back on microtransactions, such as Middle-earth Shadow of War and Payday 2. Payday 2's microtransactions were just cosmetics like TF2, but the difference is that TF2 didn't make you pay for new content updates, and Payday 2 does.
But nowadays, the pay-to-win loot box dark ages are behind us thanks to the Battle Pass. Fortnite's introduction of a Battle Pass system for paid live support has offered the best compromise between players and publishers, allowing the publishers to continue generating revenue while still making players work for stuff rather than simply paying for it all. And in most Battle Passes, if you play enough, they actually start paying for themselves, which is really cool. I never thought I'd say this, but thank you, Fortnite.
So in conclusion, microtransactions are rarely done in a way that people like, and because most of the revenue comes from whales, it probably isn't going anywhere anytime soon. However, we as customers and members of society still have a certain level of input over what games do with microtransactions, as evidenced by a few of the examples given here, like Payday and Battlefront. So, it sucks, but maybe it doesn't have to suck as much.
Hey, I'm Jenica,
And I'm Nikki.
and today we're talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. And we're doing this on a very special day. Nikki, do you know what day it is?
Today is the premiere of Stone Ocean, of the anime format.
Heck yeah! As of today, Stone Ocean has premiered, and we are currently watching it. I'm probably watching it at the desk right now.
I'm watching it
Please
right
do
now.
not tell our producer, Ian.
Don't tell our producer.
Please do not.
We're watching
not tell our
JoJo
producer.
right now in the middle of the show. Don't tell Ian.
But before we get to Season 6, we have to start at the beginning. Season 1, where this whole adventure starts off.
Part 1, Phantom Blood. The protagonist of this story is Jonathan Joestar, our favorite lad.
Honestly, my emotional support hetero.
He gets an evil stepbrother named Dio, who kind of sucks, really. He kisses his girlfriend, he kicks his dog.
So what does he do? He becomes worse. And by that I mean becomes a vampire. And so Jonathan must stop him from killing a bunch of people by harnessing the power of the sun.
It's called Hamon. I call it Sunshine Karate, because that's what it is. Hamon in Part 1 doesn't really have a whole lot of defined rules. It just does whatever the plot needs it to. Like, Leaf, hang glider, do it. Part 1 is a lot more of a hero's journey than a lot of the others.
Yeah, it only gets more bizarre from here on out. Nikki, did you have a favorite episode?
I think my favorite episode is the finale. It's a real curveball. You gotta watch it to know.
Favorite character? 100% Speedwagon.
It's Speedwagon. He's the best man.
It's Speedwagon. He's wonderful. Season 2, Battle Tendency. This happens with Jonathan's grandson, Joseph. He does not drink his Respect Women juice.
Joseph, I can't believe Joseph doesn't respect women. He's a lot more irrational.
Joseph must try to stop these stoned men who come to life, along with Caesar, who he's definitely not gay for, wink wink.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Part 1 was the journey of someone who's already a hero. This was Joseph learning to be a hero.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Did you have a favorite episode this season? Because I know I did.
My favorite is definitely Young Caesar.
Young Caesar.
It just has the strongest plot moments in general.
I also, though, really like when we first meet Caesar. He and Joseph do not get along and, in fact, have a battle, which is pretty bizarre.
It's freaking stupid.
It's so dumb, and I love it so much. Let's get on to the next season, Stardust Crusaders, which features one of our favorite battle boys, Jotaro Kujo, and includes some of my favorite characters, Polnareff and Kakyoin.
You remember that Hamon stuff? Forget about it. It's gone.
Remember Hamon? Not anymore. We cut it completely. Now we've got Stance, which is a physical manifestation of someone's like willpower, essentially. And you may think that we have a new villain, but it was me, Dio. That's right, Dio's back. They go on a cross-country adventure to stop Dio from killing people.
They go to a lot of different places and they get to see a lot of different cultures and stuff.
What's your favorite episode?
I like the Anubis fight. It's a very simple stand, but it's also very intimidating and it's really cool.
One of my favorites has to be the Death 13 episodes. It says some interesting limitation on our heroes. Diamond is unbreakable. We meet our newest JoJo, Josuke Higasuka, who actually, surprisingly, drinks his Respect Women juice, which we all love.
We've gone 2 parts without it.
I think Diamond is Unbreakable is probably my favorite season. It's really different from the other ones. He's going to school, and like we get to meet classmates and stuff.
He like does random teenager stuff with some of the weird abilities he discovers. It's a lot more slice of life. My favorite episodes are the one that feature the main villain, Kira. Kira's not a good person, but I find him such an interesting character. Like, he has all these weird quirks and qualities.
I really love the whole end, but I also like the episode entitled Let's Go Eat Some Italian Food. Because it's just Josuke and his friend trying a new Italian restaurant. And like, things get bizarre. It's so much fun.
Part 5, Golden Wind.
Part 5, Golden Wind,
We've
baby.
made it.
Here we meet Giorno Giovanna.
We get to see another whole squad.
Who's your favorite of the squad?
I think my favorite's Bucciarati. He's the group mom.
Mine is definitely Narancha. Just gives off a little gremlin energy, which, I mean, me too.
That's fair.
So, in Golden Wind, Giorno decides to join the mafioso, and then decides to take down the crime boss.
I use the Mafia to destroy the Mafia.
My favorite episode is probably the Requiem Quietly Plays Part 1. For specific reasons, I like the first part better than the second part. If you've seen the show, you understand.
My favorite is episode 20, the final mission from the boss. It's about at the midpoint of the series. It's a big turning point.
But it's a good season, nonetheless. So, Nikki, would you say you're a JoJo's fan?
I would say I'm a JoJo fan. I like JoJo because even though it has a lot of flaws, I think it's just unapologetically itself. It's big and bombastic all the time. It's so much fun to watch.
It's just such a fun show. It's full of buff people.
There are a lot of characters that, even if unintentional, are very queer-coded, and we latch onto that.
Oh yeah. This entire show is so queer-coded. So that's all that JoJo has currently. But Part 6 is getting animated, and a manga for Part 9 has already been confirmed. So I guess you could say this story is to be continued.
Anybody who hangs out with me already knows I'm rooting for Deathloop at the Game Awards. It got 9 nominations, the most out of this year, with 2 of them being 2 different characters in Best Performance, both of which are going to get blown out of the water by Lady Dimitrescu, and one of which being for Game of the Year. I know when one game gets lots of nominations, people can get upset about it, which I know I certainly did last year with The Last of Us 2, which I have strong opinions about, but I think that Deathloop honestly earned all of these nominations. So I want to go through all of them and talk about why it's earned its place this year. For the record, I'm not voting for Deathloop in every category, but it is a valid choice for each of the categories it got. So let's jump right into it. Best Narrative. You play as Colt Vaughn, who wakes up on a beach with amnesia and a hangover. He quickly discovers that he's in a time loop. We all know Groundhog's Day, starring Bill Murray. He sees a bunch of floating words in an alternate timeline Colt that tells him he needs to break this time loop. He also meets Juliana Blake, who is a surprise tool that will help us later. She also tells everyone on the island, who are all people who willingly entered the time loop, to kill you. So that's neat. Oh, and only Juliana and Colt remember anything between loops, so everyone thinks it's the first day of the loop. You learn you need to kill all 8 visionaries, the people who maintain the loop, in one single day in order to break the cycle. The whole game revolves around learning what happens during the loop and when to plan accordingly, in a similar way to Majora's Mask. For example, every day at noon in Updawn, this building catches fire and burns. However, in the morning it's still there, and you can see that this machine causes the fire. Follow the wires and disable all the electrical boxes, and the building won't burn down at noon. The game is filled to the brim with things like this that you can manipulate. There are also tons of notes and audio logs around that tell you about the lore of Black Reef, what the people are up to, and what all the visionaries are like. You can see they really fleshed out everything about the environment, and this game's whole thing is interacting with the environment to change what happens between differing timelines. Best Performance. Juliana and Colt talk to each other over the radio throughout the whole game, and I just love these characters so much. Colt is a man with a mission, but he also has compassion at the same time. He's already one of my favorite protagonists in games. I can't really explain Juliana without spoiling stuff, but she's sassy and annoying in a super fun way. And I love all the short dialogues of her trading barbs with Colt.
vocal this time. Simply fascinating.
Thought I'd bring my neighbors a casserole.
Charlie prefers his food drinkable.
Sounds like my kind of guy.
Oh yeah, you and he have plenty in common.
Friendship is a beautiful thing, Juliana. You should try it sometime.
But I have so many friends, Colt, and we all think you suck.
The actors really brought their characters to life, and a bit of a hashtag SJW sidebar here. I think it's really cool that they made these characters black and gave them black actors. Their speech has a dialect to it that white actors just don't capture in the same way, and it makes them different from the endless Commander Shepard protagonists that we have seen time and time again. Plus, representation is always a great thing. Great job to Jason E. Kelly and Ozioma Akai, who have also played Doomslayer and Alex Vance respectively. Best art direction. All the areas of Black Reef truly feel unique from each other. Hell, even small individual subsections of each big section feel super distinct. Example, Freestad Rock has Frank's Club and Fia's Bunker, which are very different from each other, with one having fun, bright oranges and the other having cold, dark greens. Updom is definitely my favorite area of the game. The alleys are narrow and packed with people. Charlie's game corner is clearly super nerdy and fun, and Alexis's party is fancy and decorated. Most of the game has a 60s aesthetic, but every area is unique and gets the Visionaries vibe across perfectly. Best score in music and best audio design. I'm talking about both at once because they're similar. The score, sound effects, and general audio are all of high quality, but there are a few particular things with them. This game uses short musical stings that play when you solve or find a mystery. And these things actually use leitmotifs from the menu music. This is my favorite part of the audio design by far. Then we've got the music that plays when you fight a Visionary. It's the same song for all of them, but they have a key difference that gives each of them an extremely different tone. Instruments. Here's a bit from Wenji's Lab. It has a really distinct style, right? Now here is Alexis's party. Effectively the same song, but it's also completely different. Alright, let's get on to the meat of everything. Best action game. Finally, we get to the gunplay. You know, the actual game. There is not a big variety of guns, but all of them feel distinct and unique. So I really think less is more in this case. You can also get trinkets, both for individual weapons and for Colt himself, that do all sorts of things that give the game the real variety. Faster reload, bigger magazine, bigger range, better accuracy scoped, better accuracy from the hip, more health, make less noise, faster move speed, faster crouch speed, faster takedowns, the list goes on. You can also get slabs that are basically superpowers. Teleportation, invisibility, stuff like that. My main criticism is that there's basically no variation between normal enemies, but luckily the terrain and cover of each area is different enough to make every combat still interesting and fun. There's also a PvP element to this game, where you can choose to play as Juliana and invade people who are playing as Colt. And when you're playing as Colt, you can get invaded by other real players who are playing as Juliana. It's pretty balanced, as Colts and Julianas are constantly discovering new counterplay and strategies, able to set traps for each other and catch each other off guard. I could talk about this for so long, but I should start to wrap up. Best game direction. I'm no expert in the behind the scenes stuff, but this game clearly had a vision. The narrative and gameplay themes are consistent throughout almost the whole game, and to me, that's the sign of a team on the same page. Also, the game was delayed by 3 months because they didn't want to crunch the development team, and that's pretty awesome to me. One complaint that I have is that it's a bit too handholdy with telling you exactly where to go, so if you feel up to it, feel free to turn objective markers off. I kinda wish I had done that. All of this comes together to form a game that I absolutely love. The action is so satisfying, the Visionaries are a lot of fun to take out because they're all awful people. The music and audio is great, and the characters of Colt and Juliana are so much fun. Their actors absolutely killed it in the booths. If you don't want to vote Deathloop for the Game Awards this year, I understand, because there are a lot of great contenders this year, especially for Game of the Year. I mean, I had to choose between this and Psychonauts 2, and that was a really hard choice. But as much as I love Psychonauts 2, and it deserves all the praise that it's getting, I think Deathloop deserves the title just a bit more. Regardless, I love this game, and if you have a good PC or somehow have a PS5, I'd recommend diving into the island of Black Reef. Thanks for listening to me rant, and maybe sometime I'll be Juliana in your game. I'll see you then.